Hello and welcome to Blue Table Talks. I'm Sherry Hubert. I'm the Associate Dean of Admissions here at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. And welcome for the first time for those of you who have not joined us for Blue Table Talks, and welcome back for those of you who have joined us for each of the segments. As you know, Blue Table Talks is really about digging in and delving into the experiences and the identities of the members within our community here at Fuqua. And this segment we'll be talking about pioneering pathways, Asian leadership and achievement in our students here at the business school, Fuqua, and how they really use their identities and use their experiences to catapult themselves in the business world. We have a great panel, as you can see here, and they'll all introduce themselves shortly. But the wonderful thing about this panel as well is that they represent not only a diversity of programs here at Fuqua, but also diversity in terms of Asian and South Asian culture. And we will talk a little bit about how that's played out and how that shows up in their experience through their program. So without further ado, I'd love for you to meet our panelists. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, kind of brief introductions, because we're going to get into delving into your individual experiences soon. But Seg, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Name's Seg Ogang, 1/24, graduating in a couple months, hopefully.
Congratulations.
So I am a local restaurant owner.
What's the name of your restaurant? You can give it a plug.
It's Yaya Tea in Chapel Hill in Durham. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got for me right now. I went originally from Jersey. I grew up in Jersey. I was born in the Philippines, migrated here when I was about 4 or 5. And then now I'm in North Carolina for the past 7 years now. So
Excellent.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Louis Wu. I'm a daytime MBA class of 2024, so also graduating in a few short months. Here at Fuqua, I'm involved in a number of clubs and activities. I'm on the MBA. I'm the Vice President of Technology. I'm also a co-fellow with Ria here. I'm a career fellow, an FCCP fellow, and I'm on the cabinets of ABC, which is the Asian Business Club, and the GCC, which is the Greater China Club, as well as the allyship chair on the BBSA allyship panel, which is Black Business Student Association here.
Right. And where'd you grow up?
So my family's originally from China, the south of China, Guangzhou, but we immigrated here when I was a little bit under 3, and I've been in New York ever since. So a Brooklyn kid through and through. It's hard to take, it's easy to take the kid out of Brooklyn, but hard to take the Brooklyn out of the kid. So I still consider myself a New Yorker, through and through. But yeah, have adjusted really well to Durham and love it here so far.
Okay, great.
Wow, okay. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining in. My name is Akash Ankani. I am currently from Mumbai, India, and I'm enrolled in Masters of Management Studies FOB program here at Duke. I am on the Master of Management Studies Association. I'm also the admission ambassador, and I'm closely work with innovation and entrepreneurship as well. I'm their ambassador as well. And yes, super excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Ria Singh. I'm a second-year daytime MBA student. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, and my family came here before I was born from New Delhi, India. So I was born and raised here in the States. I spent about 8 years in New York for undergrad and then a little bit after. And here at Fuqua, I'm pretty involved, not as much as Louis, but a little bit. I'm an admissions fellow, Cole fellow, career fellow, and I'm on the cabinet of INDUS, which is the South Asian Student Association, cabinet of AWIB, which is the Women in Business Association. I may be forgetting something else, but I think pretty involved, so happy to share my experiences and also excited for this conversation.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, lots of activity. Maybe let's start. I think the audience would love to hear about what inspired you to decide to pursue your business degree in the program that you just and was any of it a result of anything that had to do also from a cultural perspective or growing up, your community, your family influences? Kind of talk a little bit about that. Who wants to start?
I could start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could tell you a little quick thing about Filipinos. Culturally, we're not I say we're not risk takers just because of how the Philippines has been with past decades, and most of the times you see a lot of Filipinos in the nursing medical field, and a lot of is because that's the only way they kind of got here originally to like migrate here. They had to be like nurses or something like that, and economically the business section of the Philippines is just not there where you can take risks. So long story short, growing up into like a Filipino family and culture, you're pushed to be nurse pretty much. And I'm kind of the outlier. And even then, I went to that process. Like, I did like radiography. I went to nursing school, and I was like, not for me. And I did get that. And then switching to business is like, well, why are you in business? Why don't you just stay in nursing? So, long story short, I felt like this MBA kind of gets me to like really understand what I need to do to be successful and kind of paving my own path. And I see a lot of younger Filipinos and Filipinos in my generation really want to pull away from like this like only path that you can have. So I felt like I had something that I needed to do for myself, and kind of go towards like there's another way for like this another path for being entrepreneurial or in business. So.
And you had your business before you decided to get the MBA program, right?
I did.
You started your business already.
Yeah. So my wife. Her family, they're actually Chinese from Fuzhou, and they're very into like that restaurant business space. So I was actually working back in banking, oddly enough, and they were like, "Hey, I want to take this chance. You want to take a chance? Go to North Carolina and start this business." And I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, do it." And then I was actually working for a whole year there because we're not sure if this bubble tea thing is going to work in North Carolina 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just see. And then it ended up doing a lot better than I expected. And she's like, "You want to help me with this? You want to join?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens." So, and then we've been doing it for, like I said, 4 years. And I felt like I have to do, there's definitely more I can do. And like, I feel like there's just so much I need to do and learn. So that's why I took the MBA program.
Gotcha. Yeah. What else?
Well, okay. I think I can go next. So honestly, I'm kind of the black sheep in the family. I'm the first person to ever come out. Like no one. My father works for the central bank of the country, and in my extended family as well, most of them work for the government or they're closely associated with the PSUs. So no one really thought of going outside. I also gave the back in India, we have to give government exams to kind of work. I also gave and pursued, but I always wanted to I had that itch of going out, and I wanted to explore the international market, specifically the US. And in fact, Duke was the only school that I applied to. I had applied to no other business school in the US, and I thought if I'm coming to US, it's going to be Duke. So. And yes, I submitted my application, got in, and my dad did not know that I was applying, by the way. So I received the admit letter, and after a few days, I went ahead and told him that, you know what, I'm planning to pursue. He had an idea that I wanted to go for a graduate school program because I was working in a bank for about 2 years in the wealth management space. Had a lot of fun doing that, but somewhere, I think I was the youngest person in the organization to ever lead a project, and I wanted to get an advanced management degree somewhere down the line, and I thought the US will be a better place for me to get that, and ended up pursuing that, and here I am.
Was your family supportive once you told them?
Oh yeah, my mom knew it. My mom knew about it for sure. Even my brother, like, he did all my resume reviews and everything. He's younger to me, but yeah. Yeah, but they were supportive. They were very supportive. He took a few days, but he kind of accepted the fact that, yeah, he has to go.
Yeah, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
2 questions actually intriguing me. Why just Duke? I don't know like how in India, like how Harvard, Yale, all these other schools, like how prevalent it is and popular. But so what made you just go to Duke, right? And 2, like I'm actually really curious how that family pull, like why you had to tell your dad. Like how important it is that to get your dad's acceptance to
that's an incredible question. And okay, firstly, why just you? Because I had spoken to over 40 people before I came here. From before I even started my application, the institutions that you mentioned, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, like of course these are incredible institutions, and I was considering them for my deferred MBA programs as well. But I never went through that route because I thought right now I need a degree wherein it's less than 2 years, and that's why MMS just fit in the perfect criteria. It felt like just right the perfect fit, and I couldn't see any other institution as highly ranked with a successful track record, and I think Duke was one of the only schools that did that. And another option was the accelerated MBA option that Duke provided. Like if you're an MMS student and you can go ahead and work for about a few years in the industry and come back for your accelerated MBA and just do another year and you can get your MBA. So that was a pretty attractive option that I thought. And I was reaching out to folks in LinkedIn. I would go reach out to them. Maximum people from Duke reached back out to me, and there was no other school that did that. Like, yes, some of them were like extremely sweet, but I would say 90% folks who I reached out to, they were responsive. They hopped on a call with me. They helped me out with my application, interviews. And yes, I ended up spending New Year's with one of my LinkedIn connection requests, and he's a very good friend of mine.
Wow,
So yeah,
great.
2021 MMS grad. So before I even started my Duke journey, I was kind of living it. So that's one of the reasons.
That's why you're an ambassador.
Oh.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. And coming to your second question, my dad would have been supportive and is still supportive for each and everything. It's just that I didn't want to get expectations of with every member of my family that I'm going to go out, because I was applying to very few schools and I didn't know what my chances were. And that's the reason I kind of held on to that news. I let my mom know so that at least someone in the family knew that okay, he's thinking of something. And when I told my dad, he was very happy. But it's just that I didn't want to kind of bother him with that fact that okay, what's going on, what's the update. And coming to the second aspect of your question, the acceptance. I think my dad's pretty chill. Like he's like
Excited.
just like he was happy. Like do whatever you want to do, but just put your all heart in that. So
That's great.
he's like that. Yeah.
What about Louis Maria? Were your family members excited for you? Did they know and support you in your journey to your MBA?
Yeah, I can answer this. So, culturally, right? I think coming from like an East Asian background household, education has always been very important to not just myself, but my mom. It's something she preached very heavily, especially because my mom, she's a high school dropout, and when she immigrated over here, not a lot of opportunities were available to her due to, her background coming from, like a very industrial kind of like, blue collar, background back in China where she was raised. And when I was growing up and we grew up and we moved around a lot around New York City, she always like instilled in me the values. It's a very like typical East Asian upbringing where, it's much like, well, maybe I couldn't have done it, but make sure that every opportunity you can, try your very best. So, I always kept that in the back of my head and have applied that to, the circumstances and every kind of like, like step along the way. So when I was applying business school, which is very funny. So prior to business school, I worked in the college access, higher education space. So I've always been around education, educators, and folks who have been, really all about like advancing education opportunities, especially for those, at the edges and those less fortunate. And I really felt strongly that if I was in the education space itself, I started to take a look at education like for myself. And I shared that, thoughts with my mom. And I think at first she was really like confused as someone who was not really aware of how higher ed, especially a graduate program, much like business school itself, would work. She was really happy for me, and she has always been my biggest cheerleader and supporter, and made sure that even if she didn't understand what was going on, that she was on my corner, and that anything I needed, support emotionally, she'd be there for me. So when I got in, she was the first person I called, and it was a very touching, special moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think similarly, my family has been very supportive as well. My dad, he went to a really prestigious university in India and had a lot of opportunities from that, which I think has really made, I think, like education a big part of my family culture and just things that I think that was just always something that was there. And he did an MBA as well, but he did a part-time MBA like a long time ago. I don't know if Dad, you're watching this. I told you. But anyways, but I think that was something that was kind of in the back of my mind. And for me, I have like a marketing background. I think that's something also my family didn't fully understand. I think when I was like younger, I really wanted to be an artist or do something creative, and that's always been in my nature. And they're like, well, maybe try, like, what about business? What about like, and then they spent some time like researching career paths as well, and we're like, what about marketing? And I think that's something where they like helped me find that path. But once I got in, I really enjoyed it. And even before business school, I was working at an electric toothbrush startup, which was really unique and a really cool experience. And I think that's where they were kind of like, okay, we don't really understand what you're doing, we'll support it. But what I found like during my my work experience, I think one thing that became really hard for me, it's like, okay, the marketing stuff I get, like the concepts, actually putting things into play and measuring things, but I think it was more of the people management aspect. So like, how do you advocate for yourself? How are you managing and leading people? And so that's where I was like, oh right, my dad did this MBA, like he's wanted me to go to grad school, so that's when I really started considering it. So they've been supportive even if they're not sure what I'm up to, so I really like that.
Yeah. Well, we know why you chose Fuqua. Maybe Rhea or Zeg or Louis, why did you guys, how did you get introduced to us and why did you choose us?
Yeah, I think for me, I went to school undergrad at NYU, so loved Stern. I was a big fan, but I think there was like not really a big campus. There wasn't a lot of school spirit or sports, and so that's something that was really important to me, like community. And I think even just from the beginning, like similar to Akash, like being able to talk to people who are in the program and really understand what the community and culture was like was really important to me. And I think even just like I don't know a lot about sports, but I think it's just like even hearing how people are so passionate about the sports teams and just everything that we have, I think that was something that really stood out to me. And then of course Team Fuqua, I feel like we hear it all the time, but it really stood out to me when I was just talking to people, learning about the program, and then even being here. I think it's just something that we live and breathe every day, and that was just a huge factor of why I came here. And I applied early action, so I was really sure.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you guys for your Team Fuqua moments. Do you guys have any interesting Team Fuqua, like any examples that really, showcases like, oh, this is what Team Fuqua means to me, because I've experienced it.
Yeah, it's like, in Wemba, I feel like it's everywhere. And it's hard to like pinpoint it, but knowing that like the group that you're with is just so willing to share their information, their expertise, and their connections, right? It's just that to me is like the essence of it, where we can be our like true selves. I don't need to like, obviously you want to, be professional, but after like a series of events, you're like, okay, this is what you are. This is generally nice person that wants to help other people. And I've met a couple of people that are now, like I said, I'm transitioning to a different brand, and they're essentially, they're consultants or they did private equity, and they're like, hey, and I asked them like, hey man, you've been helping him, how much do I have to pay you for this? And they're like, honestly, I usually charge about $500 an hour, or like shares of future, but for you it's free. But let's have lunch and let's talk about it. And I got that with a different amount of people, and I think like, yeah, that's like Team Fuqua in essence. Like, it might not always be like out there, like on social media or and it should be, but it's not out there, but it's there. Yeah. Like the connection, the presence, the the friendship is like that's what it is to me.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Any examples?
Yeah, so I have two. So I have one academic and non-academic one. I'll start out with the non-academic one. I know there are a ton of examples of great Team Fuqua stories, but one that sticks out vividly was in summer term. So in Fuqua, for the daytime MBAs, we start a little bit earlier than some other schools in the summer term, and this was roughly 2 weeks after moving to Durham. I had my C lead, my study group over, and it was one of the first times we had like a gathering. We're just like getting dinner, we're getting to know each other, just like talking about like our backgrounds, and it was hosted at my apartment. To summarize the night was that it started off great. We had hot pot, so we were attempting to like cook, and we used like a stove burner. Fair warning, you should not be doing this in an apartment. So long story short, a fire broke out in my apartment, and I had to like vacate. The sprinklers went on, like it was like a whole story. So
This is during your dinner party?
Yes, during dinner. So we again started off great, but then the sprinkler system went off. Like luckily no one was hurt. Like we didn't lose anything of value. It was just like like the apartment flooded. So my apartment flooded after that night, and I remember thinking like, well, how am I gonna make it to class? Because we had class the next day. But I got just a ton of support, like immediately right after the fire department came, shut off all the water. My section and my CLE mates, everyone checked in on me. They offer like meal trains. I slept at my CLE mate's couch for like a week as they kind of like went in and drained out the water, and I really felt like truly I was like, wow, like I barely knew these people. My section mates I met again for like 2.5 weeks, so it was like an outpouring support, one that I didn't like expect, and I truly in that moment felt like, okay, like these people care about me, beyond just being my colleagues and classmates. They're all good people. So that was a very memorable like welcome to Team Fuqua kind of moment, and I definitely, that's like sticks out in my head. And then on the academic front, so in the spring of your first year, there's an experiential program, FCCP, which I highly recommend. I was involved, in it, and this was at the conclusion of our core classes. So my C lead and I stopped taking a lot of like classes together, but then I had FCCP, which takes place in the spring, like spring 1 and spring 2. I got to meet my I called them like my second C lead, because then like I got to work with them both for spring 1 and spring 2, and I knew a couple of my FCCP mate group members, and I wasn't exactly like too familiar with the rest, but then essentially we navigated this consulting project together throughout the next like 3.5 months, and I got to really know them on an in-depth and personal level, which really exposes how like Team Fuqua exposes you to folks from a diversity of all different kinds of backgrounds. Like Maggie, like she was in the Army, she was a veteran. Lou worked in education, much like me. Trevor, and Alyssa was a events coordinator. So, and I worked in education too. So we brought this, very diverse group of students, and this consulting project turned out to be something that I truly gained a lot from, and I'm now involved in FCCP too. And I just saw like the power of how bringing in diverse teams, which we learned in Leo, really helps exemplify and emboldens how effective the team will be in the future. And I very, very much strongly have fond memories of both the FCCP and my group. So
that's great.
Yeah.
She has some very specific examples.
Yeah, those two things definitely stick out, especially the apartment thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any? Have you?
I think just on the top of my head, I think a few days back, so there was a very heavy recruiting cycle that was going on for a few boutique consulting firms, which I'm aiming for, and I was sitting in a team space, and I was just trying to figure out as to how to send this thank you note, and I did not have any experience with that specific bit of the context that the conversation we were at, and I just cold reached out to someone, and there was a daytime MBA student that I reached out to, and he secured an internship at a top tier investment banking firm. So I was like, hey, you know what? And it just felt so silly to just reach out to him. Is this thank you note okay? Because like it could lead me to an HR round directly right after that. And he kind of hopped on, and we met in the Fox Center that very day, and he reviewed the whole thing. He checked out my CV, and just like I had met him once, but I knew that he was recruiting for investment banking, so he would definitely have some instrumental advice to give me in the process. And and he kind of proofread. He gave me a lot of inputs. My 2-paragraph thank you note came down to like 3 paragraphs with like a lot of value addition aspect. And I eventually converted an HR round from that company.
Oh, great.
But I was kind of shocked that I had just met this person for the first time, but how instrumental like each and every person can be. Like I'm in touch with a lot of weekend executive MBA folks as well, and they are way ahead in their careers, and I'm just reaching out to them for some mentorship as to where can I go ahead, because I'm so early on and I'm just starting off my career right now. And it's just, anyone that I reach out to won't say no for help, be it academic, non-academic, throughout your career. And I think everyone over here on this table has felt that somewhere down the line. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any?
Yeah, I know. I've had some time to think. I think one that comes to mind that was really personal for me was kind of at the beginning of Fuqua when we started last year. I feel like I came in with a lot of imposter syndrome just about like kind of my background. I think like I mentioned, I was working at a toothbrush startup, like selling toothbrushes on Instagram. And I think like when you meet your C-lead, you meet all of these people, it's really hard because, at least for me, it was really hard because you see all these impressive things that all these amazing people have done. And I think for me, I guess like I didn't even realize this, but I was carrying myself with kind of like a negative, like almost jokey, like self-deprecating attitude, like making jokes about my career, like, oh, I'm selling toothbrushes on Instagram, like, and I think I said that to one of my C-lead members who's a veteran, and I was like, yeah, and you're serving our country, like doing all these amazing things. And so he actually pulled me aside, like one of those first days of school, and was like, and told me, was like, hey, I noticed like you've been kind of talking down about your experience, and like I just want you to know, like, I'm here to learn from people like you have so much to offer, like I don't know much about business, and that's why I'm here, so your experiences are very valuable to me, and like I'm learning so much from you already, so just keep on doing what you're doing, and you're supposed to be here. And I think just having that conversation really early on and having someone really support me and be there for me really just flipped my whole attitude. And I think from there on, I felt like I did have a lot to contribute, and my experience was unique. And I think that's something that just helped me overall like change my experience completely. And I think that's just the essence of Team Fuqua. And like I think everyone is really like that and is super caring, genuine, and it's been just a really positive experience with everyone. Yeah.
wow.
That's great to hear. Yeah. Speaking of identity, I'm curious, to what extent, what are the identities that are, important to you, that you feel like show up every day? And it may or may not be some aspect of your cultural background, but it may be. So, talk to us about what are the identities that are really salient to you on a day-to-day basis? And then, based on those identities, do you feel like the environment and the community is inclusive and open to wanting to learn more about the different aspects of who you are? Anybody? Y'all don't need to answer.
Yeah. I could talk forever about everything, but yeah, you know what? There's a lot to unpack there. I'll go with what Fuqua and the Wemba program, and I just see that everyone's so willing to want to learn. Food is a beautiful thing because food is like almost an experiment, especially if you've never had it, right? So when I tell them a lot of the Wemba class never had bubble tea because we're older. I think average age was like 35, right? So yeah, we never had bubble tea, so they're very open to it. Like, what's that? Like, oh, you have food. What is like onigiri? What is all this other food? What's Taiwanese? Like takoyaki, all that. So within the food construct, they're very open, but it gets into like the culture. Like, oh, I'm actually, Filipino, so sometimes we introduce some of these dishes, and I think like there's like a mutual like wanting to know more, like the curiosity of like a lot of probably Fuqua and Wemba students is like, oh, that's cool, let's try it, let's see what this is, and identifying as like even with me, I actually I'm Filipino, and then they're like, oh, you're Filipino, I didn't know that, right? And it's like, yeah, and it's like, oh, that's cool. Like they want to know a little bit about the culture, and I'll ask them like, have you ever had Filipino food? And they're like, no, never. Or some of them have, and they say like a couple of things, and like, oh, that's cool. I'll try to introduce you to some things. And I think having an identity and being able to express it to people that's eager to learn, it's a beautiful thing, right? That's how you kind of grow that relationship. And one of my classmates, I always remember him, and he's from Ghana, and he was like, yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine in Wemba. He's Taiwanese. He's from Chicago, and he was like, "Can you guys tell which one is which?" I'm like, "Could you tell that he's Filipino, he's Korean?" And it's like yeah, because he's like, I think that's interesting because I couldn't, but I could tell you a Nigerian from a Guyanese person just by the way they talk, and I was like, that's amazing, So we had that really nice conversation about identity and like what's the difference. So
and I think you're right. You have to be open to people being curious, and so that it's because so it's not necessarily offensive,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
But I also like this concept of food being an opportunity to open up and to learn and to be a way to engage around culture and identity through food.
Yes.
Right? It's an easier way sometimes for people to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me also, just on the identity front, I think growing up here, so being born in America and then coming from an Indian background, I think that's been something I've always kind of held. I wouldn't say struggled with, but I think it's just an interesting kind of mix because I felt like a lot of the times I wasn't maybe Indian enough for maybe people from India, and maybe I wasn't American enough for the people from here. And I think that that's something I've been able to balance and kind of grow into, and I'm really proud of my heritage. And I think Fuqua has really allowed me to kind of grow into that as well. I'm on the Indus cabinet, so the South Asian Student Association cabinet, and I think with that I'm able to bring my perspective as an American student to a lot of the members who are from India and kind of have that perspective, and then on the flip side, like share that culture with my friends from here who might be domestic students and kind of bridge that gap. So I think that's been really unique, and a lot of it is around food as well, which is great. But I think that it's just, I feel like Fuqua has been a really good place for me to kind of embrace all of that. And I remember even early on too, I think I speak Hindi fluently.
Wow.
It's not that good, but I think that's even your reaction. I think I always get that. Like, oh, really? Like, can you? So I was speaking Hindi to one of my friends from India. He was just so shocked. Like, wow, I didn't realize that. So I think it's interesting to kind of be at that intersection and carry myself that way. And I feel like Fuqua has really let me blossom in that way.
Oh, excellent. That's great to hear.
That's awesome. And funny, like, how the food is like kind of on the table right now, metaphorically. But, so MMS has another program called DKU wherein, folks fly out to China for the rest of the last 2 terms. And I've been, initially in the last 3 terms, I was inviting a lot of folks over for dinner, and everyone had tried Indian cuisines in the restaurants out here. But I was like, you know what, why don't you come over? I'll cook you something. And I wanted to become a chef when I was younger, so I, took all the skills from my mom and put everything in here. And I've been inviting a lot of my classmates. Specifically, I was inviting a lot of DKU folks who were flying back to China, and I didn't know if I was going to meet them again. And we would just, end up just chatting about everything in life, and we would just know the cultural differences. I mean, yesterday I ended up just talking about someone how different the government is, and it was just a very open conversation where no one would take any offense, and we were just talking about how the differences are, and I could be open about how government works in India, or like how taxes work, and we were just having like a very interesting perspective in that front. And who knows, if I ever get to travel to China, or if I ever hope to do business in China, maybe that's kind of a good curiosity lamp for me that kind of got entangled yesterday. And I think I've had numerous encounters like this, not just with Asian students, but everyone. And even be it on the board of fellows, like I'm the only Indian out there, and everyone's just so open to know about the culture, about the food. And we had like an inaugural dinner, and we ended up going to an Indian restaurant. and they would just ask, okay, and the menu was beautiful. And they were like, "Is this gonna be spicy? Is this gonna be spicy?" And everyone was just kind of asking me different kind of questions, and it was just so sweet with that transparent nature and that innocence that they're bringing, and and it's very unfiltered, I would say. So that's the best part.
Yeah. There's a great community, it sounds like, that you've been able to find within the walls of Fuqua. What about outside in Durham? Was it what you expected when you moved here? Because you guys are from big cities, right? Some of us, both in the U.S. and outside the U.S., big cities. What's it been like being a part of the Durham community? How has your identity and culture kind of infiltrated outside of the walls of Fuqua, or off campus, I should say? Do you take advantage, or is that where you find kind of solace sometimes in being able to really connect with things that are very much part of your culture or experiences before you got here, or are you able to find that as well within on campus and within the programs that you have?
Yeah, I can start with this. So much like Fuqua, I find Durham a very inclusive and very diverse community. I think coming from New York City, I was spoiled with just having friends from all walks of life, all different creeds, and I knew Durham was going to be smaller than that. But when I moved here and I saw the diversity of not just speaking of cuisines, but restaurants, but just how many different folks are moving down, I was very pleasantly shocked and surprised. So I never lived in the South before, especially in North Carolina, and I was very, again, pleasantly surprised when I saw the neighboring towns like Cary, for example, or even Raleigh, where kind of like you mentioned, and on this topic of food, there are a lot of different kind of restaurants and kind of spaces that look familiar, that feels familiar. I think obviously Fuqua here is a very international and a very diverse school across all the programs, and you can see elements of that kind of seep into the town, the city, and all the surrounding cities themselves. You have a lot of different entrepreneurs coming in, opening restaurants, having this exposure to different tastes and walks of life from all different parts of the world, and I feel very welcomed. I joke with my friends that sometimes when you walk through parts of Durham or Cary, it kind of feels like Brooklyn, maybe without all the brownstones, but yeah.
You're right, Louis, because when I first moved here from Washington D.C., and I said that Durham was very hipster, and it put off a Brooklyn
kind of
vibe, so I totally get that.
Yeah, so I feel extremely welcome, and it's been a privilege and an honor to be able to live in Durham, and I think I'm gonna miss it a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about you as a business owner? You're a student here, but you're also a business owner here. What's that like?
Oh, I'm stuck here. So I live 10 minutes away from Duke. So it definitely presents a lot of opportunities to talk to people. A lot of times, I don't get to do as much when I'm physically at the shop all the time when we first started, when you're there all day, every day. And talking, let's just say from when I first opened 6 years ago, it was mostly Asian students. We started in Chapel Hill, so mostly Asian students that would come in. And now I see different, basically everyone, Latinos, African Americans, anyone will just go to our shop, Indian. And it also shows in our staff. Our staff is so diverse, and it's great to see that they're really taking into that culture, and they're loving boba, you love boba, right? So, and then they're ooh, what's this food? Yes, and then you're hey, you want to try Filipino food? And they're yeah, let's try it, And I love this part about this business, and I'm really close to my staff, or I try to be as much as I can now. And they're texting me hey, listen, hear me out. Why don't we sell this? And I'm I was okay, fine, make a recipe and we'll see. We'll try it out, And they're okay, and he's from, I think he's Thai, and why don't we sell this? I'm okay, let's try it out, So yeah, there's definitely I'm loving, at least the acceptance and the path of the Asian culture from K-pop and like anime. Like it's before it wasn't like that big, especially anime. Like I'm a lot older than you guys. I remember at a time and I had to be like, you watch anime? Like I watch anime. Like okay, cool, you're friends. But like it was looked down a little bit more. But now everyone loves it, right? So I love to see it, the growth, and I'm excited to see what other like nationalities and like what other experiences are coming out. So yeah.
Nice. So I'm gonna keeping on the topic of just being outside the walls of Fuqua. Where it can be a bubble and it is very safe and we feel secure. It's not, I think folks who have been listening to the news knows that there has been a rise in, incidents, against Asian Americans, international, individuals. And so I'm curious as to what you guys think. What's your take on it? Do you feel safe? Akash, do you feel safe in the U.S.? I'm sure there are people out there watching us who either their parents or they themselves had the question on their mind. What's your take on that? Do you feel safe in, but one in the U.S., but then two within the kind of Durham, North Carolina community?
Of course, that's actually a very good question, and whoever's watching, if you're having this question, I had that too, so that's totally valid. And what's the best part about it is that everyone's acknowledging that with the resources that are out here. I mean, I think within 100 meters or 200 meters, there's a help booth in the like I was walking to the gym yesterday, and I saw that, and it just like I just consciously looked at it, and there's one, and I could see it in a row. And like the kind of apartments that I'm living in, it's a gated community. There's a patrol police that kind of is out there. There's a Duke police that's out there, and it kind of facilitates all the measures that students can undertake to prevent such circumstances. So all the measures are taken care of, and there are lots of tips, guidances that are out there. I think there's an email also that usually comes in if there's such incident, and I think last year there was a blackout as well, and there were like so many safety measures that were kind of undertaken. And so yeah, I mean, these are some of the situations that kind of made me feel like safe, and were like I could reach out to help if something like this unfortunately happened.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we also have the Live Safe app.
Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. Well, great. Just wanted to, because I know it's probably on folks' minds, so I want to talk about it. Let's move a little bit to maybe advice for individuals who are in the application period or process. So Rhea, you said you did early action.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else.
Yeah.
Early action too.
I
Okay,
did.
you guys were gung ho.
Yeah.
We were the only school
I
you
was
applied
on
to.
too.
Yeah.
I didn't do this on purpose. But talk about your journey to get here. Any advice? What did you really focus on? Are there any things that you wish you would have done that that our audience might be able to benefit from as they're going through the process?
Yeah, I can start on this one. I think for me, coming in, I was pretty aware that my stats weren't in the best place. I mean, of course, everyone freaks out about test scores. It's just part of one part of the evaluation, I would say. And I think one thing that really helped me kind of zoom out was really, especially for Fuqua, just really focus on my personal story, like what makes me unique and individual, and lean into my strengths a lot. And so even like if you're applying right now or have gone through the application process or have an interview, I think it's very much about being yourself and really bringing your story to the table. I think Fuqua really cares about that a lot, and that was something that I really took to heart and took seriously. And I think even my 25 Things essay was really quirky, and just like I showed it to some friends, and they're like, "This is so you." Like I think, and that is kind of the reaction that I would say you should go for. Just like be yourself. Everyone is unique in their own different ways. I mentioned like I went through a lot of imposter syndrome even after getting in here. I think you kind of have to put that to the side and really focus on yourself and where you will thrive, and I think that's what will make the best candidate. So I really strongly encourage that.
Yeah.
Wow. So as I mentioned that I had reached out to a lot of people, that's for sure. But before that, I scanned the school website. I went through multiple student blogs. A lot of blog that like the authors were mentioned, the classes were mentioned. I looked them up on LinkedIn. I reached out to them as well. So that was one thing. Like blogs were very instrumental for me in kind of looking at how my life was going to be. There were multiple, articles out there about different kind of sections. There are the triangle training that's in the start of the program. So that was incredible, and that helped me picture my life if I made it to Duke. So, and I referenced a lot of them in my essays as well as to, I'm going to be super excited if I go ahead and do this specific sort of triangle training or any other. I mentioned about MMS, being an MMS fellow in my essays, and I made it to be.
Did you attend any of our events, or because you're right? Because for you, since you hadn't had a chance to get here beforehand,
I attended 2 or 3 virtual information sessions. I think Ben, Grady, Desha, all of the folks were on of them, and multiple. I always would come in with the session with like multiple, like doesn't matter who's my recommender, like just basic questions, and they would just always patiently answer. Super responsive in their emails as well. So I think that was the best part. Even the admissions committee, like they were quick in their response. So that was kind of nice. Yeah.
It sounds like you really put a lot of work into reaching out to alumni on LinkedIn, like just really doing your due diligence, trying to connect with people.
I had to. This was the only school I was applying. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned here.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. So
any advice? Any things that you did that you felt like worked out really well, or advice in terms of things you wish you would have?
Yeah, of course. So I think the advice given so far has been great, right? Definitely understand that the process itself, like test scores and grades, are really important, but like most of our peer schools, and especially Fuqua, we look at you holistically. I'm putting on my admissions fellow hat on. Right? Putting my admissions fellow hat on. And something that I really took away from my application process is that it's really a very introspective process too. Not only are the schools themselves learning about you get to learn a lot about yourself too. And as I was putting myself through that process, and I, did my research and my due diligence, reaching out to, second years, first years, alumni and folks online. I also, did my due diligence research on what kind of environment Fuqua is. It's a very collaborative, very team-oriented environment. And I really, wanted to make sure that I was getting that across, that this is how I would contribute to this team environment. I think understanding the value proposition of being in a very team-oriented, collaborative, culture here at Fuqua is very important because, as everyone here will tell you, in the classrooms, yes, faculty and professors are world class, but you do a lot of learning from your fellow classmates. Folks from all different industries and walks of life who then give you their, an insight into how, work and life was for them. And you take those experiences, and that's how you, learn from one another. So I knew all this going in, and I really, wanted to apply and make sure that, that knowledge was, apparent. And I think that makes the world difference for me in figuring out, why, one, Fuqua was my top choice and a really good fit, and 2, it allowed me to put myself, mentally visualize myself in these classrooms, in these spaces in the future, and be able to contribute to my future classmates, and really, take that as an overall package and communicate to admissions that, I can't wait to share how my lived experiences are, and more importantly, I would love to then be in this community with this, diverse, class and take in everything that they have to give to me. So I think as long as you understand also, the value prop of this amazing community and everything else that everyone else has mentioned, I think you'll be in a really good shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you?
What do you want to do, before or after?
So was your process, as an executive MBA student, you have to juggle a lot, right? You have to juggle your business, your family, working full time. So for you, what were the decision criteria that you had to kind of factor through to say, hey, I'm ready to do this now, and I'm willing to make that commitment?
Right. So logistically, it had to make sense, right? I can't go too far, right? So, like I said, I'm 10 minutes away, so it was a smooth drive to get here. Knowing what I wanted out of it, I think different MBA programs are specialized in different things. Are they into, if they're going to be in the stock market or they tech, and I think like what Fuqua really valued and I valued was like the leadership component, the holistic approach was like what I really wanted. And I know they're great in like healthcare too, but they do have a great leadership and that portion. And then I also had to see what I valued. Like it took me a while to be like, is this right for me? What are my weaknesses? And I remember actually when I applied, I went through the history of like my grades and stuff, and I had some really good highs and I had some like periods where it's lows. And I think I put on my letter like, hey, there's this portion in this area that my grades were like not that good. And then I actually wrote a letter like, hey, this is what happened, and how I think. Right. I don't know if it was helpful.
No, yeah,
it might have been.
To explain, right?
Yeah, like that was a very tough.
We're
period.
not guessing. We're not assuming.
Yeah, it was like this was a very tough period. I was like, I would say I take on a lot. I still do, but like I took on a lot more than I thought I can handle, and then. When you take on a lot and something goes bad that you don't foresee it can go bad quick. So I wrote him a letter and I told him like, I've learned a lot from that experience, and if you could see, it went back up. Like my grades went back up. So that was actually really great because it kind of took me back to, where I started, and then I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'll get into this program, but then I was like, oh, maybe they will because I have learned a lot. So that was very nice to do.
And it shows some self-awareness, right? Which is important.
And I think Fuqua wants that. Like they want people to be honest with themselves. I don't think they just want straight A's, 4.5 GPA students. They want people that like lived and like are aware of what they have and what they don't have, and go from there. So
that's great. I'm going to ask each of you, what's your favorite course that you've taken so far? Class.
I can.
Go ahead.
It's just recent because I'm in it right now, but crypto. Do you have the full name of it?
Yeah, crypto innovations.
Yes, but it's like crypto ventures, innovations, and crypto ventures.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a course that's really focused all around like everything crypto, blockchain, Web3, and I think it's just such a cool class. And Cam Harvey, he's an awesome professor. I think that it's just really cool to be in a classroom with someone who knows so much, and also just hear about we talk about the current events, we talk about the history of everything, and most of our grade is also focusing on either our own kind of idea or venture, or focusing on like a project or company. And it's something that I feel like I've been meaning to learn and have never really sat down to like read all of this really in-depth material. And so it's been an amazing way to just kind of get in the weeds of things, and it's so cool. I love it. So it's a great course.
That's great.
Wow, for me, I think, I'm sorry, but it's going to be two, which is going to be, so in the previous term, we had principles of strategy. That's something that I really liked. But right now, I'm doing FCCP, as you mentioned, and I'm one of the student consultants. And it's primarily because of my engagement manager and the team that I have around me. We got assigned a client. I had never worked in a healthcare space, and we got a healthcare client. Never really thought of doing it. And I'm just thrown into the problem, and it's awesome to kind of just to understand a 8-page PDF. I have to go through 20 web pages to understand the technicalities. So that's something, and it's a hands-on learning opportunity for me to kind of. It's a litmus test for me if I like consulting or not, since want to get into that. So that's really nice. The engagement man is exceptionally talented. She is an incoming offer from one of the top tier consulting firms, and the team is so diverse. I think we have out of the team of 10, I think we have one biomed major or pre-med student, and he's kind of helping us out navigate through this. So FCCP is another one.
It stands for Fuqua Client
Consulting Practicum.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So my favorite class, and it's really tough, to choose. There are so many great classes, but it definitely is corporate finance with Professor John Graham. So Professor John Graham is a bit of a celebrity in the finance world, or finance as he calls it. He's been, conducting a CFO survey with the Wall Street Journal for the past 2 decades. He regularly testifies on Capitol Hill with Congress, and corporate finance, which is something that, in addition to Professor Graham, a lot of the faculty and professors here at Fuqua does really well. Is obviously there's a mechanical nature of the class, right? Like you're going through how companies and managers of these companies look at the cost of capital, how they're raising debt, like how you lever, unlever, beta. There's the technical nature of the course, which is very quant heavy. But the way that Professor Graham approaches the class is that he doesn't expect you to have a super in-depth knowledge, like prior industry experience, either as a banker or working in corporate development. He really starts from the bottom up and builds up that foundational knowledge where, let's say your background prior to Fuqua was nothing related to finance at all. You could come in and have a high level understanding of what the course is through the syllabus, and through those 6.5 weeks, he walks you through exactly everything that you need to know. So by the end of it, you not only have that foundational knowledge, but you also understand how, from a CFO or someone in the C-suite, how they're looking at it, someone's balance sheets, right? It's not just an income statement, not just a statement of cash flow, but you understand why certain decisions are made. Is this the right time from the macro environment? Are we supposed to raise debt now, or are we supposed to hold off a bit? Should we issue a secondary? So I learned an incredible amount.
You clearly did.
And I think, I have to attribute a lot of it to Professor Graham. He's an amazing professor.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. What about you?
Too many.
Oh, just one quick. Yeah.
Right now, I'm really enjoying this pricing class.
Okay.
Strategy and pricing. Going into it, I'm like, how much can I know about pricing? It can't be that hard. And now I'm in the class now, and I'm blown away about how in-depth pricing can be and all the variables, and it's a very technical class. You have to do price elasticity and all that, which I love because I was an econ major. But it is amazing, especially for my field, obviously, right? And yeah.
You're not gonna raise your prices, are you? Okay, so so much time. I mean, we could just go on and on. But I'm curious that the audience might be curious. What do you want to accomplish before you graduate? Is there anything that you haven't accomplished that you want in these remaining few months? I'm gonna ask you guys each for that.
Yeah, I think for me, I just talked about the crypto class, but my group actually has an amazing idea, and I think it's something we're all kind of should we actually consider this as something we do? So stay tuned. Maybe that's something we'll accomplish before school is over. I think there's just a lot of other bucket list items, just climbing to the top of the chapel, and I think just there's so many cool Duke specific things, and at Fuqua too, we have this thing called Blue Cup. It's a competition that the MBA students do with UNC's MBA students, and we have a bunch of different games. It's so many different games, kind of Olympic style, and we won the Blue Cup last year, so we need to win it again this year. Okay. So trying to accomplish that.
Lewis, what about you? So you're involved in a lot of stuff as well, and
yeah.
I'm sure you're recruiting, or you kind of.
So I'm done recruiting. I signed an offer.
Where are you going?
I'm going back to New York City. Going to Accenture in consulting,
Congratulations.
And it's exactly regionally. I want to be close to my family, my mom and brother specifically. So I'll be going back to New York City. But in terms of your original question, I think I really want to end the year strong. Obviously, spend as much time as possible with my friends here and make memories. And I think outside of that, though, a lot of the opportunity and something that I really took away, and I'm extremely grateful for, are all of the leadership opportunities that Fuqua has offered me. And I think, making sure that each one of those opportunities and closing out the year strong, transitioning into our first years, our incoming second years, and the incoming new first years, to make sure that we continue this community where you pay it forward, that you leave, the place better than when you have found it, and really have that lasting impact. It's something that has been tremendously rewarding, and just internally grateful for the opportunity to be able to step into some of these leadership positions and help out in any which way that I can. So I'm really looking forward to finishing out the year strong on that.
Well, great, excellent.
Wow, that's nice. Firstly, coming on the sports aspect, I really want to attend the Duke UNC match. I've got the basketball season pass, and it's 9th March, I think that's when the match is. I'm curious for that. And secondly, before I went ahead and did my corporate work experience, I had 2 startups of my own, and I ran that, and I'm trying to get involved with innovation and entrepreneurship. If I do not have a startup idea, I can kind of help and mentor and assist some students, maybe from undergrad, from the business school, or thinking of starting up, and if I can drop some 2 cents on their venture, and if I can help them in any capacity. And it's incredible that Innovation and Entrepreneurship Bullpen has just opened up in the basement, so it's just right in the center
in the
of
foxhole.
Yeah,
Yes.
the foxhole.
Not in the basement.
Oh yeah. Sorry, in the foxhole, and I could just go and attend events and help out there. So I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to accomplish.
Oh, great. Excellent.
Shout out to Professor Jamie. I have her right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Great, another great class.
Yeah. So you're about to graduate. So what do you want to?
Before I graduate, I would just like to spend time. I mean, our last residency just happened, and I got to spend a lot of time with people I'm cool with, and then I talked to a bunch that I didn't get a chance to. I do feel like I'm gonna keep in touch with a lot of them. There's not much I think I wanna do like beyond what I'm doing now. Just maybe I am gonna probably hit them up a little bit more than I would and check up on it, but yeah, just continue making sure everyone's doing good. See if I can help in any way. Before and then enjoy our last couple months.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
You put it all out there. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank each and every one of you. This has been such a pleasant conversation, like hearing about your stories and your examples, great examples. Thank you so much, and just your experiences. And I'm sure I speak for everyone that they also enjoyed it. I wish you all the best of luck as you get back out there, or continue to be out there. And good luck with your business. I'm excited to see what's the next phase of it.
You'll see me around.
Please give. Please invite me to the.
You'll see me around, and we're gonna actually do some testing.
I will sign up.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
me too.
Yes.
We all will, yeah. Well, again, we want to thank each of you as well for tuning in this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have and learned so much more about the different members within our community. Tune in for our next Blue Table Talk. It's called Elevate, Empower, Navigating Business School and Maintaining Black Excellence at Fuqua on Wednesday, February the 14th. With that, I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, morning. Be kind to each other, and the best of luck out there. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care.